First Dibbs question today brought to you by Trantolo and Trantolo. Lawson, Trantolo, and Trantolo have been in Connecticut for 85 years. That's long enough for Keith and Scott Trantolo to be third generation of Trantolos that are out there working for you. Give them a call at 844-999-9999. Can't get over Rachel and Trevor, by the way. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming in the studio.
We found out off air, Rachel's kind of the Rob Dibble of the league.
She is the nasty girl of sled hockey
nasty girl,
and checking people. She does.
Leads the league in checks.
There you go. She cashes those checks. Best pick last night in the draft.
I'm so impressed with Houston going up to 3 to get Will Anderson Jr.
That was impressive.
I think that is, you know, I don't Kurt's looking at me like, brace yourself. Darnell's about to make some stupid prediction that's definitely not going to come true.
They won 3 games this year. They might win 5 or 6 this
I
year.
would say they're competitive in the AFC South with those two cats, with C.J. Stroud and really Will Anderson Jr. He's going to be havoc for Trevor Lawrence. Derrick Henry isn't going to be – you're going to have to pay attention to him more than just the whole defense. And I think honestly, I think Houston Texans are better than the Colts.
At this moment?
At this right now.
Well, I think both through so much head coaching, the personnel change.
Both teams had 2 quarterbacks that they thought were going to be legit for 20 years, and now look, haven't been able to get back from that. And Deshaun. Process.
I'm still in shock over the whole Deshaun. I don't think that it's no ifs, and, or buts. That was an unbelievable situation, and still an unbelievable situation with the Cleveland Browns. Listen, I was drafted twice, once out of high school and once after I basically left college to get drafted. And for all of them, I think it's an amazing moment in their lives. It's a realization of a dream. But you now have to follow through. As an adult, you have to show up. You have to be on time. You have to be attentive when you're doing all that stuff. You and I both know the NFL, college football, you have to be smart as hell. You have so much to remember. So yeah, you can look at what they do on the field, but there's so much preparation in football. I'm very happy I played baseball. I didn't have to prepare that much other than to go out there and play and do my craft. But these, when Kirk Morrison years ago, we worked together while he was still in the NFL as a linebacker, had a iPad with all the information for the defense on it, and he was constantly studying in breaks, and I was like, dude, don't you know this stuff? He's like, dude, it changes every week.
Yeah, defense has to learn a new offense every week.
So I think about those things whenever I think about these young men that, dude, it's not easy. And a lot of these guys fail because they get distracted or they go down the wrong path. So keep your nose to the grindstone and do what you need to do and have a long, successful career. I think the worst thing for any of these athletes is injury. And I pray for them all the time. Don't get injured. Stay on the field, stay healthy, and then, don't screw up off the field. Like you said, try to be ambassadors all the time and leave the game better than when you found it.
Yeah, I always think of what NBA friend that used to come on all the time tells us this. Legs. What Legler told us about the draft about 5 years ago. You never know how a kid's going to be after you give him $1 million. And we shall see with all these guys.
Or 5 or 10.
I really like, I'm a small college guy, and I'd like when I see the small college guys that were there for 4 years, that toughed it out, that could have transferred, that didn't. Like Zay Flowers, for me, Zay Flowers could have went to Alabama last year. Zay Flowers had no reason to stay with Boston College, really the last 2 years. For him to stick it out and be the only option. Like, think of the time Zay Flowers has when he's triple covered. Like, with UConn, it was the only dude we were watching. Like, everybody else,
the only guy we
matter.
wanted to take out of the game. We're like, listen, if we stop that guy, we got a shot.
So with this guy in the next level of the league, we'll see where he goes. I'm happy for him that he fulfilled his commitment with Boston College, and then turned out, hey, guess what? Still one of the top receivers in the nation, still a first-round draft pick, still going to make millions of dollars playing football.
I love it. Kurt, is anybody you loved about the draft last night?
Yeah, who jumps out at you? Anybody? Any pick?
No, I'm with you guys on Will.
It was a gutsy move to do that. I mean, they gave up a lot, but you got it.
Well, it's the Texans, so to make a good football move, it's surprising.
Well, thinking about that move, and then what we were talking with the Jets and getting that linebacker, like back in the day, I think people have just come around to the general manager and the coach need to be in the same page. They need to be simpatico. And I thought with the move to get Will Anderson was D'Amico Ryan saying, "We're getting this, dude. If you want me coaching here, we're getting this, dude." And then the same thing with the Jets and their pick was solid. If we're not going to get all these offensive guys that you had slated, I want my guy. And so I think a lot of head coaches are getting a say-so, even though their leash is so much shorter than it used to be. But they're getting a say-so in what Parcells, you say, what? If I'm going to cook the dinner, I need to buy the groceries?
Right. Well, and listen, I'm happy for C.J. Stroud. They said a lot about his cognitive tests and stuff, and I'm like, Jesus. I mean, right before the draft,
I know.
Timing is everything, and the things that you spew out there, almost like a team put that out there so that he would fall in the draft and they could possibly draft him. I'm a conspiracy theorist. There's a reason why that came out, so I was very happy for that guy, and hopefully he has a very long and successful career, and he basically shoves it to a lot of people. But I'm still saying that about Will Levis. I don't care where this kid falls to. That shouldn't be the end all for him. And, I don't want to go back to Tom Brady or Russell Wilson, but I remember when Russell Wilson fell to the fourth round. And I'll never forget this because I was still on the Best Damn Sports Show and working with Rodney Peete. Rodney Pete's brother, if you don't know, is a running backs coach in the NFL. And he said he was with Seattle at the time, or the Oakland Raiders at the time. And he said, we missed it. We missed it, meaning the rest of the league missed. And that happens. Sometimes they're so hell bent on getting offensive tackles or getting defensive linebackers, whatever, and they're like, oh my God, we didn't have this guy on our board. And then a couple years later, when this guy's dominating your team, you're going to regret it. So I hope this kid uses this as motivation to go stick it to a lot of teams that passed over him in that first round.
He wasn't the only one last night that was sitting around.
Dudes, yeah.
And in the green room, there's two others that I feel bad for. Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame, he had his whole house full with family and friends. And it seemed like every pick, the cameras went to his face, and he looked more stressed out as the picks didn't come in for him. He was still, getting the cameras in his face at 30, 31, 32, and even looking at the needs of those teams like, dude, you ain't getting drafted by Kansas City. They got Travis Kelce. Why in the hell would they draft a tight end from Notre Dame? And he knew, what it was. And to say goodbye that day, I was just thinking, like, how does he say, hey, man, thanks for coming over. Maybe tomorrow.
but that can't stop your dream.
Agree.
And for me, listen, Brock Purdy was what they call him, Mr. Insignificant
Irrelevant.
or Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant.
That ticks me off. For the first pick, you have an opportunity, and you have to make the most of that opportunity. That dude was in the postseason this year in the NFL. So don't ever think you're irrelevant. Don't ever think that where you land in the draft has anything to do with your identity as a football player.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of UFAs that have been awesome players, undrafted free agents. There's going to be a lot more this year, too.
They brought up with Bryce Young, and got guys that are sitting there going, listen, Doug Flutie had to go to the Canadian Football League before they'd believe he could play football. Warren Moon had to throw for like 40,000 yards in the CFL before he threw for 60,000 in the NFL. All right, that's going to do it for the first hour. NFL draft, some more stuff we'll talk about, and then who you got at 425.